Malik Thompson stood frozen on the edge of the crowd, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the frayed jackets and worn sneakers around him. He was a man who commanded boardrooms, a tech mogul whose name graced magazine covers. But here, he was just another face in the throng. His heart thudded as he pushed closer, drawn by a sickening instinct. The boy on the ground, his son, Jaden. Malik's breath caught, his polished world shattering in an instant. Jaden's eyes met his, wide with panic, and in that moment, everything Malik had built, his empire, his reputation, felt meaningless. It had started with a call. Jaden, a sophomore at Northwestern, had been working on a community project, mentoring kids in Englewood. Malik had been proud, even if he'd been too busy to attend the sessions himself. Now, seeing his son cuffed like a criminal, rage boiled in his chest. The officer's voice cut through the noise. "You were in the wrong place, kid. Should have stayed out of trouble." The crowd roared in protest, some hurling insults, others pleading for calm. Malik's hands clenched. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, but he knew better. He'd seen this script before too many times. Jaden wasn't supposed to be here. He was the kid who'd aced debate, who'd won scholarships, who'd promised his father he'd change the world. Yet here he was, pinned to the ground, accused of something vague, loitering, resisting, maybe just existing. Malik's mind raced back to his own youth, to the times he'd been stopped, questioned, humiliated for no reason other than his skin. He'd clawed his way out, built a life where he thought he could shield his son from this. He'd been wrong. The crowd surged, a woman's voice rising above the rest. He didn't do nothing. Let him go. Malik recognized her, Mrs. Carter, a local activist who'd known Jaden since he was a kid. She was fearless, her gray braids swinging as she pointed at the officer. The cop's face hardened, and he stepped toward her, hand still on his gun. Malik's pulse spiked. He couldn't let this escalate. Not with Jaden in the crosshairs. He pushed through the crowd, his voice steady but loud. "Officer, that's my son." The words silenced the nearest onlookers. Heads turned. The officer glanced at Malik, sizing him up. Soot. Watch. The kind of presence that didn't belong in this scene. "Sir, step back," the officer said, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Malik didn't move. He locked eyes with Jaden, who nodded slightly, as if to say, "I'm okay, Dad." But he wasn't. None of this was okay. Malik's mind churned. He could call his lawyer, pull strings, make this go away. But that wouldn't fix the deeper wound, the one Jaden was feeling now, the one Malik had carried for decades. The crowd was growing restless, the air thick with the threat of violence. Malik knew he had to act. But how? He wasn't just a father. He was a symbol, a black man who'd made it. Every move he made would be judged by the crowd, by the police, by the world watching through those phone screens. He took a step closer, raising his hands to show he meant no threat. "I'm Malik Thompson," he said, his voice carrying the weight of his name. The officer's eyes narrowed, recognition dawning. Malik didn't care. "My son's no criminal. Let's talk about what's really happening here." The crowd hushed, waiting. Jaden's eyes stayed on his father, a flicker of hope breaking through the fear. Malik felt the weight of every gaze, every expectation. He had one chance to get this right. The officer's name tag read Sullivan. He was young, maybe 30, with a jaw set like he'd already made up his mind. "Sir, this isn't your business," Sullivan said, his tone clipped. "Your son was involved in a disturbance. We're handling it." Malik's blood simmered. A disturbance? Jaden had been mentoring kids, not starting fights. He glanced at the crowd, Mrs. Carter's fierce stare. The teenagers clutching their phones. The older folks muttering prayers. They were all waiting for something to break. For the spark that could ignite this powder keg. Malik kept his voice even, though every word felt like a battle. What disturbance? He was volunteering. Helping kids. You got witnesses. Sullivan's eyes flicked to the side, where another officer was speaking into a radio. The second officer, older, with a weathered face, approached. Mr. Thompson, we appreciate your concern, but we need to process this. Step back, or we'll have to remove you. The threat was clear, but Malik didn't flinch. He'd faced worse boardroom battles, hostile takeovers. This was different. This was personal. Jaden's voice broke through, strained but steady. Dad, I was just walking with the kids. We weren't doing anything wrong. The words hit Malik like a punch. He saw the truth in his son's eyes, the same truth he'd known growing up in these streets. It didn't matter what you did or didn't do. Sometimes, it was just your face, your skin, your existence that made you a target. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others shouting agreement. Sullivan's hand twitched toward his holster again, and Malik's heart skipped. He had to de-escalate this. Fast. Officer Sullivan, Malik said, his tone calm but commanding. You know who I am. You know I can make this complicated for you. But I don't want that. I want to understand what happened. He gestured to the crowd. We all do. Sullivan's jaw tightened. But the older officer's name tag read, Martinez, put a hand on his shoulder. A subtle signal to stand down. Martinez looked at Malik, then at Jaden, and something shifted in his expression. Maybe doubt. Maybe guilt. Martinez spoke, his voice gruff but less hostile. We got a call about a group causing trouble near the community center. Your son was with them. He didn't comply when we asked for ID. Malik's eyes narrowed. Didn't comply. Jaden, who'd been raised to respect authority, to navigate a world that didn't always respect him back. That didn't add up. He turned to Mrs. Carter, who was still standing nearby, her arms crossed. You were there, he said. What happened? Mrs. Carter stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Ain't no trouble. Those kids were cleaning up the lot, picking up trash, painting over graffiti. Jaden was leading them. Then these cops rolled up, acting like they caught a gang in the act. Didn't even ask questions, just started grabbing kids. The crowd erupted, voices overlapping in agreement. A teenage girl, her braids adorned with beads, held up her phone. I got it all on video. She shouted. Malik's hopes surged. Evidence. A lifeline. But Sullivan wasn't backing down. That's not how it went. He snapped. We had reports of vandalism. We're doing our job. Malik felt the tension spike again, the crowd pressing closer. He could see it in their faces, the years of frustration, the countless times they'd been dismissed, profiled, silenced. He wanted to join them, to let his own anger spill over. But he couldn't. Not yet. Jaden was still in cuffs, still vulnerable. Malik turned to Martinez, locking eyes. If you've got a report, let's see it. If there's video, let's watch it. Right now. His voice carried the authority of a man who'd built a fortune from nothing, who'd faced down skeptics and won. Martinez hesitated, then nodded. Fine. We'll review it at the station. But your son comes with us. The crowd booed, and Malik felt Jaden's gaze on him, pleading. He couldn't let his son be taken away, not like this. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Martinez could hear. You know how this looks. You know what's at stake. Let him go, and we'll sort this out together. No headlines. No lawsuits. Just the truth. Martinez's eyes flickered with something, maybe respect, maybe fear. He glanced at Sullivan, then back at Malik. The moment stretched, heavy with possibility. Then Martinez nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Uncuff him," he said. Sullivan's face twisted in disbelief, but he obeyed, the cuffs clicking open. Jaden stood, rubbing his wrists, and Malik pulled him into a fierce embrace. The crowd cheered, but Malik knew this was only the beginning. The crowd's cheers faded into a tense hum as Jaden stood beside Malik, his shoulders slumped but his eyes burning with questions. Malik kept a hand on his son's arm, grounding himself. The officers retreated to their patrol car, Martinez murmuring something to Sullivan, who looked like he'd swallowed glass. Mrs. Carter and the teenage girl with the video, her name was Tasha, huddled nearby, whispering. The air still crackled, the threat of escalation lingering like smoke. Malik's mind was a storm. He'd won a small victory. Jaden was free for now, but the real fight was just starting. He needed answers. Why had the police targeted his son? Who made the call about a disturbance? And what was on Tasha's video? He turned to her, keeping his voice low. "Can I see it?" Tasha hesitated, her fingers tightening on her phone. But Mrs. Carter nodded encouragingly. "Show him, baby. It's important." Tasha tapped her screen, and the video played. The footage was shaky but clear. Jaden and a group of kids, some as young as 12, laughing as they painted a mural on a community center wall. The colors were bright blues, greens, a sunburst of hope against the faded brick. Then the patrol car screeched in, officers spilling out, shouting orders. Jaden stepped forward, hands raised, trying to explain, but Sullivan grabbed him, twisting his arm. The kids scattered, some crying, as Jaden was forced to his knees. The video cut off as Tasha ducked behind a car. Malik's chest tightened. It was worse than he'd imagined. No vandalism, no disturbance, just kids being kids, and Jaden trying to protect them. He looked at his son, who was watching the ground, jaw clenched. "Why didn't you tell them who you were?" Malik asked softly. Jaden's eyes flicked up, raw with anger. "Would it have mattered, Dad? You think they care whose son I am?" The words cut deep. Malik had spent years believing he could shield Jaden with his success, his name, his wealth. But Jaden was right. In that moment, on that street, he was just another black kid to them. Malik turned to Tasha. "Can you send me that video?" She nodded, her fingers flying over her phone. Mrs. Carter stepped closer, her voice fierce. "This ain't new, Malik. They've been doing this to our kids for years. You gonna do something about it? Or you just here for your boy?" Her words stung, but they were fair. Malik had been absent from this community, too caught up in his high-rise office to see the battles still being fought here. He met her gaze. "I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." She studied him, then nodded, a spark of trust forming. But before they could say more, Sullivan's voice cut through. "Mr. Thompson, we need you and your son at the station. Paperwork." Malik's instincts screamed trap. They'd let Jaden go, but this wasn't over. He glanced at Martinez, who looked uncomfortable, then back at Sullivan. "We'll come, but I'm bringing my lawyer." Sullivan's lip curled, but he said nothing, turning back to the car. Malik pulled Jaden aside. "You okay?" Jaden nodded, but his eyes were distant. They didn't even listen. "Dad." They just saw us and assumed the worst. Malik's heart ached. He wanted to promise it would be okay, but he knew better. Instead, he squeezed Jaden's shoulder. "We're going to fix this. Together." As they walked toward Malik's car, the crowd parted, some offering words of support, others staring in silence. Tasha's video was already spreading, Malik's phone buzzing with notifications. By the time they reached the station, the story was viral justice for Jaden, trending on X. At the precinct, the air was sterile and cold, a stark contrast to the street's heat. Malik's lawyer, Angela Reed, was already there, her presence sharp and commanding. She'd seen the video, and her eyes blazed with purpose. "This is a clear case of profiling," she said, her voice low but fierce. "We've got witnesses, footage, and a community ready to back us. But we need to be smart. They'll try to spin this." Malik nodded, his mind racing. He wasn't just fighting for Jaden, he was fighting for every kid who'd been in those cuffs, every parent who'd felt this fear. As they sat across from Martinez and Sullivan, the truth began to unravel. The call had come from a nearby business owner, claiming suspicious activity. No details, no evidence, just a vague complaint. Malik's eyes narrowed. He knew the game. Someone had seen black kids and assumed trouble. But who? And why? Angela pressed for the caller's name, but Martinez stonewalled. "That's confidential," he said. Malik leaned forward, his voice like steel. "Not for long." The precinct's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the chipped table where Malik, Jaden, and Angela sat. Sullivan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, while Martinez shuffled papers, avoiding eye contact. The air was thick with unspoken accusations. Angela's pen tapped rhythmically, her gaze fixed on Martinez. "You're telling me you acted on a vague tip with no corroboration? No body cam footage? Nothing?" Her voice was a scalpel, precise and unrelenting. Martinez shifted uncomfortably. "We followed protocol. The call came in. We responded." Malik's patience was fraying. "Responded by cuffing my son for painting a mural. You didn't ask questions. Didn't investigate, you just assumed." Jaden sat silent, his hands clasped tightly, the red marks from the cuffs still visible on his wrists. Malik wanted to reach for him, to erase the shame in his son's eyes, but he stayed focused. This wasn't just about Jaden anymore. Angela leaned forward. "We have video evidence showing no crime was committed. You detained a group of kids based on nothing but a phone call. I want the caller's name, and I want it now." Sullivan snorted, but Martinez raised a hand, silencing him. "We'll look into it," Martinez said, his tone cautious. "But you need to understand, we get calls like this all the time. We can't ignore them." Malik's jaw tightened. All the time. That was the problem. Back at home that night, Malik couldn't sleep. Jaden had retreated to his room, the silence between them heavy with unspoken pain. Malik sat in his study, the city skyline glittering through the window, a reminder of how far he'd come and how little it seemed to matter. His phone buzzed with messages, support from colleagues, outrage from strangers, demands for action from activists. Tasha's video had exploded, sparking debates on X about police bias and systemic racism. Malik scrolled through the posts, his anger growing. People were sharing their own story stops, arrests, humiliations. It was a chorus of pain, and Jaden's story was just one note. The next morning, Malik met with Mrs. Carter and Tasha at the community center. The mural Jaden's group had been painting was half finished, a vibrant scene of kids playing under a bright sky. Mrs. Carter traced the lines with her finger. "This was Jaden's idea," she said. "He wanted the kids to see hope, not just struggle." Malik's throat tightened. He'd been so focused on his own success. He'd missed how much his son was carrying. Tasha handed him a list of names of other kids who'd been at the mural, all with their own stories of harassment. "It's not just Jaden," she said. "It's all of us." Malik nodded, his resolve hardening. He called Angela, who'd been digging into the police report. The call came from a store owner named Richard Hayes. She said, "Owns a hardware shop near the center. He's got a history of complaints about loiterers." Sound familiar? Malik's blood ran cold. Hayes. He'd heard the name before, a local businessman with a reputation for distrusting the neighborhood kids. Malik drove to Hayes Hardware, his mind a tangle of anger and strategy. The store was a relic, its shelves stocked with tools and paint cans, the air smelling of sawdust. Hayes, a wiry man in his 60s with thinning hair, stood behind the counter. He stiffened as Malik entered, recognition flickering in his eyes. "Mr. Thompson," he said, his tone guarded. "What can I do for you?" Malik didn't waste time. "You called the police on my son. On a group of kids painting a mural. Why?" Hayes shifted, his hands fidgeting. "I saw a bunch of kids hanging around, making noise. Looked like trouble. I've had vandalism before." Malik's eyes narrowed. "You didn't see vandalism. You saw black kids and assumed the worst." Hayes' face reddened, but he didn't deny it. "I was protecting my business," he muttered. Malik wanted to shout, to tear into him, but he held back. This wasn't just about Hayes, it was about the system that let his fear turn into Jaden's cuffs. "Those kids were cleaning up the neighborhood," Malik said, his voice steady but laced with fury. "My son was leading them. And you nearly ruined his life because you couldn't see past your prejudice." Hayes looked away, shame creeping into his expression. Malik didn't wait for a response. He walked out, knowing this confrontation was just the start. Malik's car idled outside Hayes Hardware, his hands gripping the wheel as he processed the encounter. Hayes' weak defense echoed in his mind, a reminder of how little it took to turn suspicion into action. He called Angela, filling her in. "We've got him," she said, her voice sharp with purpose. "His call triggered this, and we have Tasha's video to prove there was no crime. We can push for a public apology, maybe more." Malik agreed, but his focus was shifting. This wasn't just about one man's mistake, it was about the community, the kids, the cycle that kept repeating. Back at the community center, Malik gathered Jaden, Mrs. Carter, Tasha, and a handful of the kids who'd been at the mural. Their faces were a mix of anger and exhaustion, the kind that came from living under constant scrutiny. Jaden spoke first, his voice steady but raw. "I just wanted to do something good. Show these kids they're worth something. And they still treated us like criminals." The younger kids nodded, their eyes wide. One boy, maybe 13, muttered, "It's always like this." Malik felt a pang of guilt. He'd been so focused on protecting Jaden, he hadn't fully seen the others. He crouched to meet the boy's gaze. "What's your name?" "Darius," the boy said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Darius, you're right. It's not fair. But we're going to change that. Starting now." He stood, addressing the group. "We're not just fighting for Jaden. We're fighting for all of you. For every kid who's been stopped, questioned, or cuffed for no reason." Mrs. Carter's eyes gleamed with approval. "What's the plan, Malik?" He took a deep breath, his mind racing. "First, we make sure that video gets everywhere. Tasha, can you post it on every platform? Tag the mayor, the police chief, everyone." Tasha grinned, already pulling out her phone. Next, Malik continued. We organize a rally, right here, to finish that mural. Show the world what you were really doing. And we demand accountability not just from Hayes, but from the police. The kids cheered, their energy infectious. Jaden looked at his father, a spark of pride in his eyes. For the first time since the incident, Malik saw his son's hope returning. But the work was just beginning. Over the next few days, the community center became a hub of activity. Volunteers poured in, parents, activists, even some of Malik's business contacts, drawn by the viral story. The mural grew, its colors bolder, its message clearer: unity, resilience, hope. But not everyone was on board. Malik's phone buzzed with threats, anonymous texts, hateful comments on X, accusing him of stirring trouble, of using his wealth to buy justice. Some came from within the community, voices questioning why a millionaire cared now, when he'd been absent for so long. Malik took it all in stride, but Jaden struggled. They think you're just doing this for clout, he said one night, his voice heavy. Malik shook his head. Let them talk. We know why we're doing this. For you. For Darius. For every kid who deserves better. The rally was set for Saturday, and the tension was palpable. Angela had filed a formal complaint against the police department, citing racial profiling and excessive force. The media swarmed, cameras flashing as Malik, Jaden, and Mrs. Carter stood before the mural, now nearly complete. Tasha's video played on a loop at a nearby screen, its images drawing gasps from the crowd. But as Malik stepped to the microphone, ready to speak, a new figure emerged from the crowd haze. The store owner, his face pale but determined. I made the call, Hayes said, his voice shaking but loud. The crowd fell silent, stunned. Malik tensed, ready for a confrontation, but Hayes continued. I was wrong. I saw those kids and assumed the worst. I'm sorry. His eyes found Jaden, then Malik. I want to make this right. The air hung heavy, the crowd waiting for Malik's response. He felt Jaden's hand on his shoulder, a silent plea for grace. Malik nodded, stepping forward. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. But this isn't just about you. It's about all of us changing how we see each other. The crowd erupted, some in cheers, others in skeptical murmurs. Malik knew this wasn't the end. Hayes' apology was a start, but the system was still broken. As the rally continued, Jaden took the microphone, his voice strong. This mural isn't just paint. It's us, saying we're here. We matter. Malik's heart swelled. His son was becoming the leader he'd always hoped he'd be. The rally's energy lingered, a mix of hope and defiance pulsing through the crowd as the mural stood vibrant behind them. Jaden's words echoed in Malik's mind, a reminder of why they were here. But as the applause faded, Malik noticed Sullivan watching from the edge of the crowd, his face unreadable. Martinez was there too, his expression conflicted. Malik's instincts prickled. They weren't done with the police, not by a long shot. Back at the community center, Malik, Angela, and Mrs. Carter strategized. The complaint against the police was gaining traction, but Angela warned it wouldn't be easy. They'll close ranks, she said, her voice grim. Sullivan's already spinning this as a misunderstanding. We need more than Tasha's video, need witnesses. Patterns. Proof this isn't isolated. Mrs. Carter nodded. I've got names. Kids. Parents. All with stories like Jaden's. This precinct's been targeting our neighborhood for years. Malik felt the weight of it all, the decades of distrust, the lives upended by snap judgments. He looked at Jaden, who was helping Darius and the other kids add final touches to the mural. "We need to amplify those stories," Malik said. "Not just for the complaint, but for the world to hear." Tasha, ever present with her phone, chimed in. "I can make a thread on X. Link all the videos and testimonies. Make it impossible to ignore." Malik smiled, impressed by her fire. "Do it, and we'll get the media to cover it." Over the next week, the campaign grew. Tasha's thread went viral. A cascade of stories from Englewood residents' kids stopped for biking, parents harassed for parking, elders questioned for sitting on their own porches. The media picked it up, with local news running segments on the Englewood uprising, as they called it. Malik used his connections to get national outlets involved, and soon, reporters were interviewing Mrs. Carter, Tasha, and even Darius, whose quiet story of being stopped 3 times in a month broke hearts. But the pushback was fierce. The police union issued a statement defending Sullivan and Martinez, claiming they'd acted in good faith. Anonymous accounts on X attacked Malik, calling him a sellout, a rich man exploiting the community for fame. Even some locals whispered doubts, questioning why he hadn't cared before. Jaden felt the sting too, confiding in Malik one night. "They think I'm just your son, not one of them." Malik pulled him close. "You're both. And you're fighting for them. That's what matters." The pressure mounted as the complaint hearing approached. Angela had gathered statements from 20 residents, plus Tasha's video and others that surfaced. But the police department was digging in, refusing to release body cam footage or the original call log. Malik's frustration grew, but so did his determination. He met with Hayes again, this time at a coffee shop, away from prying eyes. Hayes was nervous, his hands wrapped around a mug. "I've been getting threats," he admitted. "People saying I betrayed the neighborhood by apologizing." Malik leaned forward, his voice steady. "You did the right thing. But it's not enough. You saw those kids as a threat because of what you've been taught to see. Help us change that." Hayes nodded, hesitant but sincere. "I'll testify at the hearing. Tell them what I did, why I was wrong." It was a small win, but a crucial one. Malik knew Hayes' testimony could shift the narrative, show the human cost of prejudice. The night before the hearing, Malik couldn't sleep. He stood on his balcony, the city sprawling below, its lights hiding the scars of division. Jaden joined him, his face weary but determined. "Dad, what if we lose? What if nothing changes?" Malik looked at his son, seeing the man he was becoming. "We won't lose," he said. "Not as long as we keep fighting. This isn't just about you or Might's about every kid who comes after us." Jaden nodded, a spark of resolve in his eyes. The hearing was packed. The community center turned courtroom buzzing with tension. Malik, Jaden, Angela, Mrs. Carter, and Hayes sat on one side, facing a panel of city officials and police representatives. Sullivan and Martinez were there, their faces stone. As Angela presented the evidence, Tasha's video, the residents' stories, Hayes' admission, the room grew quiet, the weight of truth settling in. Malik watched the officials' faces, searching for a sign they were listening. This was their chance to break the cycler deep in the wounds. The hearing room was a pressure cooker, every word a potential spark. Angela stood tall, her voice cutting through the murmurs as she presented the final piece of evidence, a compilation of resident testimonies, each one a story of harassment, fear, and injustice. The video screen flickered with faces: Darius, Tasha, Mrs. Carter, and others, each recounting moments that mirrored Jaden's. Malik watched the panel, their expressions unreadable, but he could feel the room shifting. The truth was undeniable. even if some refused to see it. Hayes took the stand next, his hands trembling as he spoke. I called the police because I thought those kids were trouble. I was wrong. I saw their skin, their clothes, and I assumed the worst. I'm sorry. His voice cracked, and the room went silent. Malik glanced at Jaden, who was staring at Hayes, his face a mix of anger and something softer, maybe understanding. Mrs. Carter leaned over, whispering to Malik. That took guts. Let's see if it matters. Sullivan was called to respond. He stood, his posture rigid, his voice clipped. We acted on a credible tip. We followed procedure. If we made a mistake, it was in good faith. The crowd stirred, murmurs of disbelief rippling through. Angela pounced. Good faith. You detained a group of kids without evidence, based on a single biased call. That's not procedure, that's profiling. Sullivan's face reddened, but he said nothing, sitting down as Martinez avoided his gaze. The panel's questions were sharp, probing the officer's actions, the lack of body cam footage, the vague call log. Malik felt a flicker of hope, but he knew better than to trust it. He'd seen too many hearings like this end in excuses, in promises of reform that never came. When it was his turn to speak, he stood, his presence commanding the room. My son was handcuffed for doing good, for being black in the wrong place. This isn't just about him, it's about every kid in Englewood, every family who lives in fear of a system that's supposed to protect them. His voice rose, steady but fierce. You have a chance to do right today. Not just for Jaden, but for Darius, for Tasha, for all of us. Hold this department accountable. Make them see us as people, not threats. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others crying. Jaden's hand found Malik's, squeezing tightly. The panel chair, a stern woman named Councilwoman Harris, nodded slowly, her face unreadable. The hearing ended with no immediate decision, only a promise to review the evidence. Malik felt the weight of disappointment, but also a strange calm. They'd spoken their truth, and the world was watching. Outside, the media swarmed, cameras flashing as Malik, Jaden, and Mrs. Carter faced them. Jaden spoke, his voice clear. This isn't over. We're not just fighting for me, we're fighting for change. The crowd roared, their energy a living thing. But the victory was short-lived. That night, Malik's phone lit up with news. The police union had filed a counter-complaint, accusing Angela of defamation. Anonymous threats flooded Malik's inbox, targeting his business, his family. Jaden's college friends reported harassment, and Tasha's ex-account was hacked, her videos briefly taken down. Malik's heart sank. They'd poked a beast, and it was fighting back. He gathered the group at the community center, their faces grim but resolute. They're trying to scare us, he said. But we've got the truth on our side. We keep going. Mrs. Carter nodded, her eyes fierce. They've been trying to silence us for years. Ain't worked yet. Tasha, still shaken from the hack, raised her chin. I've got backups of everything. They can't stop us. Darius, quiet until now, spoke up. What if they come for us again? Malik knelt beside him. Then we stand together. You're not alone, Darius. None of us are. The boy nodded, his fear easing. As they planned their next steps, a bigger rally, more media pressure, Malik felt the weight of their trust. He wasn't just a father or a mogul anymore. He was part of something bigger. But the cost was clear. The system wouldn't change without a fight, and that fight was about to get uglier. The weeks that followed were a storm of action and backlash. The community center became a fortress of hope, its walls covered with messages of support letters, drawings, even donations from strangers moved by Jaden's story. The mural was finished, a blazing testament to resilience, its colors drawing crowds from across Chicago. But the fight was far from over. The police department's counter-complaint gained traction, with some media outlets spinning it as a both sides issue. Malik's business took its clients pulling out, citing controversy. He didn't care. This was bigger than his empire. Angela worked tirelessly, filing motions to force the release of the precinct's call logs and body cam footage. She found a pattern dozens of similar calls from Hayes' neighborhood, all targeting Black and Latino youth, all with vague claims of suspicious activity. The evidence was damning, but the city dragged its feet, scheduling another hearing months away. Malik knew they were stalling, hoping the outrage would fade. He wouldn't let it. The second rally was massive, spilling onto the streets of Englewood. Thousands gathered, families, activists, even some police officers who broke ranks to show support. Jaden stood at the forefront, his voice stronger now, unshaken by the threats. "We're not asking for special treatment," he said, the microphone amplifying his words. "We're asking to be seen as human, to live without fear, to paint a mural without being cuffed." The crowd roared, their signs a sea of color, justice for Jaden, and profiling now. Malik watched his son, pride warring with fear. Jaden was becoming a leader, but every speech made him a bigger target. Mrs. Carter took the stage next, her voice a clarion call. "This ain't just about one boy or one day. It's about our future. Our kids deserve better." Tasha followed, sharing her hacked but recovered videos, each one a piece of the puzzle. Even Hayes spoke, his voice steady now. "I was part of the problem. I'm trying to be part of the solution." The crowd's response was mixed. Some clapped, others jeered, but Malik saw progress. Change was messy, but it was happening. The turning point came unexpectedly. A whistleblower from the precinct, a young officer named Daniels, leaked internal emails showing Sullivan had ignored orders to de-escalate that day. The emails painted a picture of a department under pressure to clean up Englewood, with vague calls like Hayes used as justification for aggressive tactics. The leak hit the news like a bomb, forcing the city to act. Sullivan was suspended, and Martinez was reassigned pending investigation. The panel finally released the call logs, confirming Angela's findings. At the final hearing, the room was electric with anticipation. Councilwoman Harris read the decision. The department would implement mandatory bias training, increase body cam transparency, and establish a community oversight board. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. Malik felt Jaden's hand on his shoulder, a mirror of that day on the street. "We did it, Dad," Jaden whispered. Malik shook his head. "We started it. There's more to do." That night, the community center hosted a celebration. Kids danced in front of the mural, their laughter a defiance of fear. Mrs. Carter hugged Malik, her eyes shining. "You showed up, Malik. That's what counts." Tasha grinned, her phone finally quiet. Darius ran up, holding a paintbrush. "Can we make another mural?" he asked. Malik laughed, ruffling his hair. "As many as you want, kid." As Malik stood with Jaden, watching the crowd, he felt a shift inside himself. He'd spent years building walls wealth, to protect his family from the world's cruelty. But those walls hadn't saved Jaden from those cuffs. What saved him was community, truth, and the courage to fight. Malik looked at his son, now surrounded by kids looking up to him, and knew this was the legacy that mattered. Not his millions, but this moment, their voices, their hope, their refusal to be silenced. The city still had scars, and the fight wasn't over. But as the mural glowed under the streetlights, Malik saw a future worth fighting for. One where kids like Jaden, Darius, and Tasha could paint, dream, and live without fear. And he'd be there, every step of the way, to make it real.